There are sort of two arguments, and they're both partly right and partly wrong. One argument is that uh, AI will displace all jobs, so we're all in trouble. The other argument is AI is merely an amplification of humans. It'll make us great, and it won't disrupt jobs. I think both are correct, depending on the category of jobs we're talking about. I think AI will amplify the jobs of the creative, the professional, the scientists, the professor. The human will make the creative idea. AI will test it out and filter. So I think that human AI symbiosis will happen. But we have to be aware such jobs are the minority of jobs in the society.
I'm here today with Kai-Fu Lee, the founder and CEO of Sinovation, and we're here to discuss his new book, AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rob.
So you stand astride these two countries, these two cultures, and these two systems. How would you characterize how innovation is evolving in the United States, what China's learned, and how now China is departing into a different dimension or direction?
Sure. Well, U.S., as we know, is the source of the world's innovation. The typical idols are Steve Jobs, who wants to change the world, visionary, builds products to shock the world and change the world. China, through its history, has been much stronger about dedication, attention to detail, and work ethic. So it has come up with a different model of innovation. The end product is still very interesting and innovative, but it doesn't go off with a vision to change the world, and it doesn't come with a light bulb on somebody's head. So the Chinese model is pick something you're going to go after, work with it with such tenacity and work ethic, and grind away at it one step at a time with operational excellence. And when you're done, not only do you have a product that can be worth a lot of money, very innovative and useful, but also you end up building a moat that other people can't overcome because you've ground away at the problem. As an example, in the US, there's Yelp, which is a directory of restaurants. In China, there's Meituan. And Meituan was built not as a layer of technology to help you find restaurants, but it wants to disrupt the restaurant business. It wants people to save time and save money by eating at home with takeout order delivered to the home. But as you know, Chinese people don't have the kind of income that the US does, so people are only willing to pay 70 cents per delivery. And Meituan went about building an entire system that delivered to 500 million Chinese people within 30 minutes of ordering, including cooking time, down to 70 cents per order. And that is not a brilliant innovation. It's not a light bulb. It's not an iPhone. But everybody would love to have that. The choice of 500 restaurants. You can order when you leave work. The food is hot at the table. And the delivery charge is only 70 cents. But it required working away at it, electrical mopeds, recharging batteries, paying people, finding people who are willing to work for minimal wages to get to the 70 cents, and motivating them and managing them, and coming up with routing algorithms and all that complicated work. To most Silicon Valley people, this would be something they just don't want to bother with because it's 600,000 people management operational task. But in the end, liberating people from having to cook when they're tired when they get home, or having to drive out again to restaurants, and with such a minimal delivery charge, it's a tremendous boon to the Chinese consumers, but it was done in an operational excellent way. And once they've done it, competitors really can't replicate it without spending billions of dollars to experiment.
And what they really did was it appears to me, is by creating this delivery source, they've saved time and improved the quality of life for their customers outside of the commerce.
Absolutely.
The efficiency in cooking and distribution.
You could say the same thing that iPhone or Uber or Tesla have done, but done in a way that delivers the same economic value and it's not as wow as the American innovation, but the valuation of Meituan, if you look at it, is a $55 billion company.
Yes.
So it's created the same economic value.
And as you mentioned, kind of using a Warren Buffett metaphor, the moat,
Yes.
which is once they've established this,
Yeah.
no one else is going to, how would I say, find it easy to find a better way to be that market maker
Yeah.
at the center so that their
Yeah.
profit margins can be
That's right.
protected.
Yeah, it's not impossible to overcome, but it's really hard. And this is partly because China had more of a copycat reputation. And so every entrepreneur, when they build a company, are always worried there might be copycats who might price compete or replicate what they've done. So the desire to build a moat is much stronger. And then they end up with a fairly impregnable business model.
What I find fascinating, and I heard you talk about this earlier, is there is something common between Steve Jobs and these people with food delivery. Neither of them ex ante knows they're going to succeed.
That's right.
They take a plunge.
A giant risk.
Yeah.
I think Steve Jobs' risk was he actually took with Next that didn't become a big success. And in the case of Meituan, the CEO Wang Xing, he didn't know if he could get to 70 cents. Had he got to only $1.70 at 25 million deliveries per day, he would be losing $25 million every day. But he said, I'm going to give it a try, and if I fail, that's the price of going after audacious goals.
So when you look at the systems that are being built in China, very, very large scale economy, much, how would I say, much bigger field of data to be calculated. Does this play a role? Does data play a different role in China than it does in the West, or is it just a scale factor?
It plays the same role because artificial intelligence is taking off. The more data, the better the AI works. Actually, more data is more important than having a super scientist nowadays. So if you have a decent AI scientist and a ton of data, that will outperform any super AI scientist and much less data. So more data there's no data like more data. And in that kind of an environment, China has more data than anybody else because of the number of users is 3 or 4 times larger than US or India. And the depth of data is much larger through the use of food deliveries, that's generating data, through the use of using mobile payment and retail, that's generating more data, through the use of shared bicycles, and the list goes on. So more data, more people, and if we think China has 3 to 4 times more people than the US, maybe each person generates 3 times as much data. Collectively, there is 10 times more data than the US, and that's really a gold mine.
The future of work. People worry about AI, they worry about machine learning, and they worry about the nature of what we're going to do as humans in future generations.
Yes.
It's almost as if there's a fork in the road. If it's done wrong, if the transformation of society is not shepherded by stewards who have a deep, what you might call philosophical and soulful intent, it can be quite haphazard, rough and tumble, and lead to social breakdown. On the other side, taking advantage of these technologies can help us evolve to a higher place. We live in a time where the disruption of globalization, the philosophical challenges of different systems of thinking coming to the pinnacle of the G20 in the US-China relationship, where trade adjustment assistance, budgets, school systems, everything seems like it's under pressure. Everything feels, in the word, disruptive and threatening. But that masks the possibilities that come from technical innovation, and you illustrated that today. How do we put ourselves on the right track for what you might call human supportive AI and technical innovation?
Yes, yes. I think on the one, there are sort of 2 arguments, and they're both partly right and partly wrong. One argument is that AI will displace all jobs, so we're all in trouble. The other argument is AI is merely an amplification of humans. It'll make us great, and it won't disrupt jobs. I think both are correct depending on the category of jobs we're talking about, I think AI will amplify the jobs of the creative, the professional, the scientists, the professor, the columnists, the story writer, your friend, the movie script writer.
Yes.
It will create lots of permutations and filtering of ideas and scripts for them to consider. New drugs that could be invented. The human will make the creative idea. AI will test it out and filter. So I think that human AI symbiosis will happen. But we have to be aware such jobs are the minority of jobs in the society. The majority of jobs are relatively routine jobs, or jobs that have significant routine components. So AI today is very good at doing routine jobs. If fed large quantities of data and given the right answer or labeling of each data, it can recognize faces, give loans, provide support to customers, pick fruits and sort packages much better than human. So we're on a path where those routine jobs will gradually be completely displaced by AI. So I think it's incumbent upon us to figure out how to transition that substantial workforce to something else that they can do, can be reskilled to do, and can bring satisfaction to do. I think that is probably the big challenge. Yeah. And I think the path forward, the only job category that I think is large enough that AI cannot do, that humans need, is jobs that require human interaction. So call it social jobs, empathetic, compassionate, trust-developing jobs, jobs that go from entry-level jobs as nannies and nurses and also teachers and the future of doctors, elderly care, all revolve around the human trust and compassion. I have been a cancer patient, so I know that.
It's
and
discussed in your book at some length.
yes.
It's a chapter I want to underscore
You like,
that
okay.
everybody should read.
Thank you. It's an unusual, unexpected ending to my book. Well, we're spoiling the ending now, but we won't tell the true ending.
We won't foreshadow too much.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, but I think people who have cancer want a doctor who cares deeply, and the doctor probably needs more training on people interaction and EQ and communications than the specific deep knowledge about each type of cancer and how it's treated, because AI can do that. So that will kind of lead us to a future of potential medicine practice where the practitioner maybe only needs 4 years of training, not 10. That will bring down the cost of healthcare, make it accessible to poorer regions and countries, and make the profession of doctor, there may be 10 times more doctors. They'll be paid less, but increase the accessibility. So those kinds of transformations could go into the legal profession, accounting profession, teaching profession, and they're not a simple one-to-one displacement. But I think the human will move more and more to the interaction part.
What I found very powerful is the book was both autobiographical in a deeper, an earlier history.
Yes.
It dealt with very powerful issues that are on the horizon right now, but you brought the transformation of yourself that came through this health crisis into what I would call evolving your interpretation of what's meaningful.
Absolutely.
And as we look at the fear that people have right now about technology, I think what they fear is that technology is not what you might call joined by the heart. It's not given a human purpose, where those notions that you excavate in the latter third of your book about what is the meaning and what is purpose and what is use. It's not just making money and fame.
Right.
There are many dimensions to a meaningful life, and the fact that you could weave that in here, I think enhances
Thank you.
people's sense of the possibility of this technology.
Thank you. I do think it's a multi-stage process. I think having been through illness, I recognize what I value, facing that death may be 100 days away, that the things I value are not work and work ethic and working harder and fame and money, but the love of my family, but pursuing my dreams. Those are the things I really value. And I regretted not having lived that way, and it woke me up. But at the same time, I realized as we see AI coming and displacing many jobs, people aren't going to have that same epiphany. They will be faced with, well, AI took my job. Even if I'm given social welfare or UBI, well, what's the meaning of my life? I think in the short term, we need to find a way to reskill, to give people that meaning back, so that maybe a customer service rep can become an elderly companion. Maybe that truck driver can become someone who could be an elderly care and help help the elderly move around and make sure they don't fall. So those kind of transitions are needed, and I think they will give them the satisfaction of work, because at the end of the day, it's probably more satisfying to have helped someone than to have been on an assembly line. So I think that's the temporary 20, 30-year solution. But I also see through my own eyes that ultimately we have to evolve out of this obsession about work being the meaning of life. Yes. And that's how I wanted people, as they finish the book, to think about the next 30 years may be chaotic and rough, but if we get over it, if people move on, we really at the same time need to start thinking about AI may be here to liberate us from the routine work, and that allows us to pursue our dreams, spend time with our loved ones, and find why we exist as humans.
Well, at an earlier turbulent time, John Maynard Keynes wrote his famous essay, The Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. And he talks in that essay about the fear and disruption and feeling like we're way off course, but he concludes that it's actually just a time of transition where the disruption is real, the pain and the disorientation is real, but these are growing pains. If we do it right, we're on our way to a better future. And I think you've created a book which, in these turbulent times, is like a beacon of hope, both through your example and through the vision that you've shared with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.